So now it's actually time to start solving some problems with trig. This will probably be 2 or 3 videos because there's a few steps you got to go through. But right now we're just solving for the sides of triangles. Okay, just the sides. So let's say I have a right triangle here. Okay, so on a question, on a worksheet, on a test, whatever, this is what you'll see. So let's say this is x and this is 40. Okay, and obviously I want to solve for x. So when we're doing these problems, the first step we want to do is label. Okay, and that is a few steps if you go back to the labeling video, but those steps are circle the reference angle. Okay, find the hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle. Find the opposite leg, which is across from the reference angle, and what's left over is adjacent. So now what I want to do is I want to circle the important parts. And I'll just say sides, that might make things easier. So what I mean by that is there's going to be, majority of the time, one side I know, I better know at least one side, and one side I'm looking for. Okay, that side I know, this side I'm looking for. So based on that then, step 3 is decide which trig ratio. Decide which trig ratio. So if you remember, there was a video where I talked about this. If I just come down here and look at so, ka, toa, I care in this one about O, and I care about H. O is what I want to know, H is what I know. So that's this first one, which is S. So I know in this problem, I'm going to be using sine. Okay? So step 4, the last step, is really solve. So what I do is I always write the trig ratio, whatever trig ratio I'm using, and then I write the reference angle, so in this case 25. And then remember, sine was opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite in this case is x, the hypotenuse is 40. Okay, so there's what I have so far. Now, you'll need a calculator for this part, so I need to figure out what the sine of 25 is. And just as a reminder, you always want to make sure you're in degree mode. If you take trig, you may do some radians, things like that, but for now we're in straight degree mode. So I type in sine of 25. For some calculators, you'll hit 25 first and then press the sine button. But I figure out the sine of 25 is 0.423, and I'm rounding to 3 decimal places in the middle. That's important. 3 decimal places in the middle. So that's going to equal x over 40. Okay? So now what I want to do is I want to set up the ratio. So I put this over 1 and I cross multiply. 1 times x is just x. 0.423 times 40 is 16.9. So my final answer can be with 1 decimal place, rounded to 1 decimal place, rounded to 10th. Okay. Now, notice here the x was on the top. Your unknown could be on the top, could be on the bottom. If it's on the bottom, which I'll do next, it does involve one more step. Okay. So we'll get to that. So let's look at another example here. Here's my right triangle. Let's say this is 41 degrees. Say this is x and this is 12. Okay, remember our steps. Step number 1, label. Across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. There's my reference angle, so across from that is opposite. This would have to be adjacent then. And so what I want to do, pick out the important parts. In this case, that's O and A. So if I remember, so katoa, O and A are right there. So I know I'm going to use tangent. So it's tangent of 41. Okay, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's going to be 12 is my opposite, my adjacent is x. My calculator, I type in tangent 41, and I get 0.869, remember 3 decimals. Okay? that equals 12 over x. This is where I set up my proportion. So I put this over 1, and I cross multiply. Now notice when I cross multiply here, 1 times 12 is 12. 0.869 times x is 0.869x. I need to get that x by itself. So I want to divide by 0.869. They cancel out here, so I'm going to have x by itself. 12 divided by 0.869 is 13.8. So my answer would be 13.8. So I'm going to probably do a video for each trig ratio, but that's sort of the basic rundown on how to solve the problems. We didn't do any with cosine. But each time you do a problem, you have to decide, what do I know? What do I want to know? Which trig ratio should I use?